Hi guys, let's go ahead and start reading chapter 3. I'm sorry that I'm kind of whispering, but my kids are already asleep and I do not want to wake them up. It's kind of hard to get things done when you have two little kids running around literally all the time. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started with chapter 3. Okay, I look up from my album to find my mother staring at me. It is warm in the train because it is so crowded, and Mother's face is flushed. Of course, it doesn't help that she is wearing 2 layers of clothes, and her heaviest coat, and her ski boots. Still, the flush on her cheeks just makes her look prettier. My friends were always telling me what a pretty mother I had, and all of Father's friends were taken with her the moment she walked in a room. She has dark wavy hair and large brown eyes. Nothing unusual in that. It's just the way her face all comes together. She's not only beautiful though, it's that her inner calm and sweetness shine through her eyes. I love to photograph her. What? I say to her. It's your photo album, she replies. When I was 14, Oma Rachel and Opa Samuel had pictures of all our special events, weddings, bar mitzvahs, anniversaries. Look what your album has in it. So aquí, oh, the mom, why is she upset about Daniel's album? Think about that, guys. Nothing but horrible memories. They aren't all so bad, Mother, I say, trying to make her feel better. How can I tell her that I'm looking through them to try to make sense of this nightmare? I can't let her see how upset I am. It would only make her more miserable. Her eyes well up with tears. She smiles in the hope that I won't notice. Of course they aren't, Daniel. She knows that I'm trying to make her feel better, and that makes her feel worse. Why don't you close your eyes for a few minutes and rest? My father suggests to her. Yes, she agrees. I think I will. She leans her head on Father's shoulder. Erica looks down at my album. She shakes her head when she sees the pictures I have it opened to and goes back to composing quietly in her head. I remember Auntie Leah giving me Uncle Peter's camera when she and her children moved in with us after they took Uncle Peter away. Frederick settled into my room, and the first thing we did was turn one of the closets into a dark room. Then I read every book I could on photography until I felt ready to begin taking pictures. Since Uncle Peter was my favorite uncle and Auntie Leah had given me his camera, I felt it was my duty to take over his responsibility as the family photographer. I'm going to stop right here, and I'm actually going to go back to this part where they turned one of the closets into a dark room. I mean, now we don't do this anymore, but back in the day, even like when I was younger, I mean, I'm talking about like around when I was 18. Even like, okay, so even when I went to France, I had to get my camera and it had film in it. And in order to get it developed, you had to be in a completely dark room. Now, obviously, I didn't have that in my house, so I had to take it to like a Walgreens, and they had a dark room in there where they developed film. So that's what that dark room in his closet is for. It's for him to keep his photography. Oh my God. Creo que ya se despertó mi niña. False alarm. It was not my daughter. It was the stinking dog. Anyway, Frederick and I made a pact that we would photograph everything we could as a record of our ill treatment by our fellow Germans. Ill treatment, okay? Do you think that's positive treatment or negative treatment? Ill means sick, so it's negative treatment. I look at all the photos of the identification cards we Jews had to carry. Our ID cards were stamped with a big J for Jew. If you didn't carry it at all times, you could be arrested. And yet, if you did carry it, you were marked as a Jew. The date on the photo reads July 23rd, 1938. So here, they were pretty much screwed if they carried it and screwed if they didn't. Erica suddenly interrupts my thoughts. Just after you took that, we had to change our names, she remarks, pointing at the ID card photos. The Germans, in their search for racial purity, decreed all Jews had to add a Jewish name to their other one. Sarah for a girl, Israel for a boy. If I signed anything, I had to sign it Daniel Israel. Father was Joseph Israel. Mother was Ruth Sarah. And Erica was now Erica Sarah. I remember Erica said at the time that Sarah was a beautiful name and that she was proud to add it to her own. Still, we should have seen then how much they really hated us. Hated us so much that we couldn't even have German names. We had to be identified as Jews above all. But weren't we Germans too? No more. This was another way to separate us from the true Germans. The next photo is very underexposed. It shows Father's store, but this time the windows have been smashed and it shows people leaving the store, arms filled with merchandise. These people were looting his store, carrying away whatever they could. So, what do you think looting means? These people were looting his store, carrying away whatever they could. Estaban robando. They were Father's customers, people he trusted. It is the day after Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass. Called that because all night you could hear the sound of glass breaking. The glass of synagogues and Jewish stores and homes and prayer halls. Under the picture is the date November 10th, 1938. Father told me later that the events of that night had started in Paris when a young Polish Jew had shot a German official. He did it to avenge his family, who had been expelled from Germany by the Nazis with thousands of others and sent without food, money, or any of their belongings to a city in Poland called Lodz. After the man he shot died, the SS, Hitler's elite bodyguards and powerful police force, ordered its troops into the streets of all German cities to take action against the Jews, to teach them a lesson. What a terrifying night it was. We lived in a quiet residential area. We had both Jewish and non-Jewish neighbors. Our area was not deeply affected by the rioting, but Father had been working late and didn't return home that night. Fires blazed all over the city. Glass broke. Screams filled the air. Oh my goodness, do you think his dad is going to be okay? My mother would let none of us leave the house. We turned off all the lights and pretended no one was home. We were in panic, worried sick about Father. The next morning, she allowed Frederick and me to go search for him. We ran to the store. That's when I took this picture. But Father was nowhere to be seen. All that day, we waited. Even Erica's violin was silent. Barely anyone spoke. Uncle Walter came over with Uncle Aaron. They sat with Mother. She cooked our meals and never broke down once. Finally, at around 9 p.m., the door opened. It was Father. Mother flew into his arms. I wanted to do the same, but suddenly I felt shy. He motioned Erica and me to come over and gave us both a kiss. His brothers hugged him. Auntie Leah hugged him. He sank into a chair. Mother ran to get him a glass of water. Okay, this right here is helping me as a reader realize that there has now been a change in father. So if we think back to how dad was at the beginning, what did he kept telling his wife Ruth and everyone else in his family? He kept saying, "Oh, nothing's gonna happen, like it'll be okay, whatever." And I think now, right here in this moment, he has realized that things will not be okay. "I've been at the police station," he said softly. "I managed to bribe my way out." Bribe is one of your vocab words. "I don't want to talk about it." He turned to his brothers. "It's time to leave," he said. "Past the time." "And what country will take us?" Walter said. "Remember that newspaper headline this summer after the conference at Evian in France? Jews for sale. Who wants them? No one." "Still," father answered, "we must try." Ah, so I was right. He realizes that it's time to leave Germany. Um, I think that's actually going to be a good spot for you guys to stop for for Wednesday. And I'm going to go ahead and keep reading, and you guys can come back to this on Friday so that you can continue reading this chapter, okay? Jews for sale. No one wanted us. The Germans would have gladly let us go, but no country would open their doors to us. They got together at a conference and decided that they didn't want us any more than Germany did. Yes, they took a few, just not too many. Father tried hard to get us visas, but many countries had decided that they would let in a certain number of Jews each year. That many and no more. They called it a quota. The United States had a quota of people from Germany that was not filled, yet they wouldn't let any more in either. Uncle David, who was already in the United States, tried to help us, but his letters became more and more discouraged. Most of the synagogues burned down during Kristallnacht, and many of the smaller prayer halls. After that night, life became harder and harder. Father's store was taken over by the Germans. They paid him a few marks to make it all seem nice and legal, and a man called Mr. Schnurr was given ownership of it. Father was heartbroken. I mean, can you imagine, like, just somebody coming and taking your business from you? "Hey, this isn't yours anymore. We're taking it." Just because of your religion? He'd worked all his life to build up that business, and suddenly it was taken away from him. Mr. Schnurr kept father on as a clerk. That way the customers continued to come. Now we had almost no money. Like right here, como dicen en español, ni la burla perdonan. Like, "Yeah, I'm going to take your business, but you can work here as a clerk." Now we had almost no money. Auntie Leah managed to get work as a nurse at a Jewish hospital. We were no longer even allowed to vacation in Germany, to go to the sea to swim or to the mountains to ski. Oh, how I had loved skiing. The speed, the cold, the daring. Mother had bought all of us brand new ski boots. They stood idle in the back hallway. The next few pages of the album are a series of photos I took on the streets of Frankfurt. To earn money, I'd snap a picture and then ask the person if he wanted to buy it. If he said yes, I'd take down his name and address and deliver the photo to him when it was ready. I was able to make a little money that way, and I also felt like I was recording these faces, and that behind each of these faces was a story, even if I didn't know it. Of course, the photos in my book are those that weren't bought. I look at the well-dressed gentleman, fear written all over his face. He was Jewish, and he was terrified of me and my camera. Why had I taken his picture? Who was I working for? It shows how bad things were then. A 12-year-old boy takes an adult's picture, and the adult is terrified. Of course, children were dangerous. Just down the street from us, a Hitler Youth boy turned in his own parents to the authorities because his father was a socialist, a political enemy of Hitler's. They were sent to a concentration camp, and the boy was placed in a good home. I remember his parents well. They always had a smile for me and were quite friendly with father and mother. Oh my goodness. A kid turned in his own parents. Here is a picture of one of mother's ration cards. After France and Great Britain declared war on Germany in September of 1939, we could buy food only with these cards. Our groceries became very limited. Ration cards, limited. Okay, what's the connection? But mother was a wonderful cook and a really talented baker. She could whip up anything with a bit of flour. I remember one day creeping into the kitchen, powdering my face with flour as she and Erica were working, and then shouting boo at them. Mother knocked over the bowl, she was so shocked, and Erica spilled the milk. They both scolded me terribly, but inside, I enjoyed it. It felt good to be scolded about something ordinary like that. I think it made me feel that things were ordinary. But nothing was ordinary or simple. When the war began, my friends and I were so confused. Some wanted Germany to win, others to lose, figuring that was the only way to get rid of Hitler. I was one of the ones who wanted us to lose, but that felt so wrong. Everything was upside down. I look at the next picture. It is one I took of Oma Miriam at the Jewish old folks' home. She is staring seriously into the camera. Her hair still black, only flecked with gray. Her dark eyes boring into me. She wanted to move there after Opa Karl died. She didn't want to burden us, she said, by coming to live with us. She was funny and smart. I loved her. She did the strangest thing. When I think back on it now, it strikes me so bizarre. But then, as a 12-year-old boy, it seemed wild and wonderful. She made me a Hitler uniform. I'll never forget the day she gave it to me. It looked almost exactly like the real thing. I gazed at her in disbelief. "What is this?" I said. "What does it look like?" she retorted. "It looks like a Hitler Youth uniform," I replied. I suppose I must have given her a rather odd look because she smiled then and said, "No, Daniel, I'm not crazy. I know you. You're a free spirit. To tame you would kill you. I don't want that. You'll have to be strong, Daniel, and wild, and untamed." She paused. "Wear it. Go places you wouldn't be allowed to go. Have the freedom it gives you. And take that camera along. Record things. For history." I was so astonished, I don't think I said anything. I just took it and left. I hid the uniform in plain brown paper bag under my mattress so mother wouldn't find it when she cleaned. I would change into it on the days when the house was empty. Mother out trying to find food, everyone at school or work. I would double back from my way to school, go home, change, and then go out and enjoy Frankfurt. I remember the first time I put it on and looked at myself in the mirror. My black hair tucked into the cap with my blue eyes and fair skin. I looked every inch the perfect Aryan. It gave me the strangest feeling when I went out in the street. People often walked as far away from me as possible. I took my camera and took pictures of Jewish shops that had been taken over, of troops marching through the streets, even of exhibits of downed enemy warplanes. I also took advantage of the freedom the uniform gave me to go to the movies and museums, places I normally wouldn't be allowed to go into. My heart always pounded, and I was sure I'd be discovered. But the uniform was a passport to freedom, just as Oma Miriam had promised. One afternoon in early March, I was walking across a small square near the center of town. I was in my uniform. Two SS black shirts were harassing and humiliating a group of Jewish men. Often, the Nazis would go to Jewish homes and drag the men out, or just find them on the street and pick on them. A wooden platform had been erected in the square, and four men, all about father's age, were sitting on stools. Around their necks were signs reading, "Violated the spirit of National Socialism," or "Insulted our way of life." A crowd had gathered, and they taunted these men. Some threw rotten tomatoes. The men could not defend themselves, could not even wipe the rotten fruit from their faces. Suddenly, one of the black shirts noticed me. "Hey, you," he called. "Come here with that camera. Have a look at our show and tell." I walked over, forcing myself not to tremble, not to look afraid. "Take a picture of these idiots," he laughed. "With pleasure," I agreed, my voice louder than normal so he couldn't tell how terrified I was. "You take that picture to your youth group," the black shirt told me. "Your instructor will be very proud of you. Now that's real show and tell." "Yes, I will, thank you," I said. I took another one just to make sure he thought I was enthusiastic enough and then hurried away. Tears burned in my eyes. I knew one of the men. He was a distant cousin of mine. He hadn't even recognized me in my uniform. I don't have those pictures. I know I should have kept them for my records, but when I saw them after they'd been developed, I ripped them to shreds in a fury of disgust. And then I put the uniform away. I realized that even though it gave me freedom, I had to be who I was. Daniel, a 12, almost 13-year-old Jewish boy who carried an ID card stamped with a big red J. But now I understood what all those non-Jewish boys who wore the uniform felt. The uniform gave them power, respect, and freedom. It must have been terribly exciting. How easy for them to put on the uniform, and with it all of Hitler's ideas, forgetting any moral standards they might have had. After all, the whole country loved and feared them. Surely there could be nothing wrong in that. And who told them anything different? Their teachers? Their parents? Those who should have told right from wrong, told them wrong was right. Not long after that, Mother discovered the uniform one day when she was making my bed. When I admitted what I'd been up to, she and Father were furious. Father dragged me to Oma Miriam's room at the home and confronted her. "What could you have been thinking of?" he exploded. "He could have been killed." "He wasn't, was he?" she replied calmly. He was so angry, he glared at her. "No, thanks to you," he said, and he stomped off. She gave me a wink as he dragged me behind. I pat her picture. She killed herself a month later, just after my 13th birthday. She saved up the sleeping pills they gave her each night. One evening, she took them all, went to sleep, and never woke up. But she made sure to come to my bar mitzvah first. It was held at a small prayer hall. Uncle David was gone, married now, and living in the United States, and Uncle Aaron and his family had left for England. Uncle Leo couldn't come from Berlin because his family had no money for the trip. And of course, I couldn't help but miss Uncle Peter. I'd always thought he'd be there at my bar mitzvah. A few of Father's friends came, and all of my classmates. It wasn't the celebration I had once imagined, just a small, quiet marking of my entry into Jewish manhood and all its responsibilities. Oma Miriam had left a note before she died. It said, "Please don't be angry. I've had a good life. I fear what is ahead. I don't want to suffer, and I don't want to see you suffer. I go in peace." I read those words over and over and over. I was angry, so angry. I wouldn't talk to anyone for a week, not even Erica, who tried to console me. But I'm not angry anymore. Thank God she didn't live to see us thrown out of our homes and out of our country. And right now, that's all I can thank God for. Not much, is it? Oh my gosh, you guys, this book is getting so good. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I've enjoyed it. Remember, this is historical fiction. This is a true story of a fictional character, but the history is true. All of this really did happen. So, yeah. I hope you guys are liking it, and please email me if you have any questions, okay? Have a good one. Bye.